Yeah, I'll react to that, sure.
Hi guys, Ryan Shirley, amazing channel. My favorite travel channel, to be honest. Or it's between Ryan Shirley and Rick Steves. Ryan Shirley has by far the most amazing footage, in my opinion, and Rick Steves has a bit more of the history aspect, which I like. So that they pair really well together, in my opinion. So let's go. Top 25 medieval places to visit in Europe. I couldn't recommend this channel enough, guys, by the way. Amazing.
My name is Ryan, and I spent the last few years exploring Europe, and I want to show you my favorite locations from the Middle Ages. So here is my medieval places top 25.
Number 1. I'm sorry. How can you beat that? Mount Saint
Medieval
Michel,
Europe is
something.
one of the most fascinating periods in all of history.
I gotta shut up. I didn't hear what he said. Stop.
Medieval Europe is one of the most fascinating periods in all of history. Some of the world's most iconic cities and architecture were born during this time. From the fortress of Mont Saint Michel to the walled city of Avila, Europe's medieval cities and history remain unmatched to the rest of the world. Let's start this video off in the magical medieval town of Dubrovnik. Located in southern Croatia on the Adriatic coast, Dubrovnik is one of the most stunning medieval cities in all of Europe. The history of Dubrovnik dates back to the 7th century when it was founded by refugees. The city rose to prosperity during medieval times thanks to its maritime trade. Now, one of the most notable features of Dubrovnik are the walls that surround the city. They're almost 2 kilometers in length and anywhere from 4 to 6 meters thick. It just makes you wonder what it must have felt like to live here during medieval times. After Croatia, we're gonna head up north to Czech Republic.
If you guys wondered why I was saying this channel has such good photos, this is why.
Visit during medieval times. After Croatia, we're gonna head up north to Czech Republic to visit the capital city of Prague. Prague was the capital of the Kingdom of Bohemia and was the main residence of many Roman emperors such as Charles IV. One of my favorite attractions is the Charles Bridge. Its construction began in 1357 and it wasn't finished until the beginning of the 15th century. The bridge is decorated with an alley of over 30 statues. I mean, it's just so scenic and such a great feature in Prague. The Old Town Square is also a great place to explore, and the Prague Castle is another beautiful sight to see. It's considered to be the largest ancient castle in the world, and it was built more than 1,000 years ago in the 9th century.
Guys, if you see me move, I can see both here and here. Okay, just such
a castle in the world, and it was built more than 1,000 years ago in the 9th century. I mean, that's a freaking long time. Prague has such a historic vibe, and I hope all can visit. While we're still in the Czech Republic, we're going to visit the magical city of Český Krumlov. Located about a 2 hours drive from Prague, Český Krumlov is a medieval fantasy. As I was doing research, I was just blown away by the beauty of this place. It looks like something straight out of a fairy tale. The town arose around the year 1240 when the Český Krumlov castle was built and a settlement emerged beneath it.
So cool.
1240 when the Český Krumlov
That's so amazing.
Castle was built and a settlement emerged beneath it. In 1302, the town and castle were given to the Rosenberg family, who owned it for the next 300 years. Český Krumlov thankfully escaped the bombings of World War II, which is the main reason the city is so well preserved. Today, it stands as one of Czech Republic's most beautiful towns. One of the main attractions of the town is the castle. It's the second most visited in the
Guys, I want to go to Czech Republic very much. So probably Czech Republic and Italy, with Spain probably following those two. I'm trying to think of Greece as well. But just when I think of this, a country that I've said this in another video pretty recently in the past few days. I forget how the Czech Republic came up, but the Czech Republic seems to symbolize if you were to pick a country to symbolize, I chose the right word, symbolize, both the east and west of Europe, it seems like the Czech Republic really would be that choice. I I've never been there, so maybe I'm wrong, but
country. It's surrounded by a moat that's not filled with water, but bears instead. That's pretty crazy. You can also visit the castle tower to get an incredible view of the town. I mean, it's just such a magical place, and I can't believe it exists. After the Czech Republic, we're gonna head over to Italy to visit the charming town of San Gimignano. Now, located in Tuscany, San Gimignano is a stunning medieval city perched upon a hill. One of the most iconic features of the city is the medieval watchtowers. Currently, there are 14 watchtowers still standing, but during its prime, there were over 72 towers, with the highest being over 70 meters tall. The towers were built as a result of competing families who wanted to build the tallest and most grand tower. I can't imagine how it must have looked like back then. I guess you could say that it was the Manhattan of the Middle Ages. I went there a few years ago and I was just baffled by those towers.
Dang it! He can do a backflip. I think I've seen him do one before. I really want to learn how to do one.
The Middle Ages.
I can do one on a diving board in a pool, or on a trampoline, or on a higher platform like a dock. But to do it on the ground and level where you're gonna land is impressive.
I went there a few years ago and I was just baffled by those towers. San Gimignano flourished as a city until 1348 when the plague of Black Death struck the town, which resulted in killing over half the population. San Gimignano's medieval vibe has remained untouched throughout time and has become one of the most popular medieval vibe has remained untouched throughout time and has become one of the most popular medieval locations in all of Italy. While we're still in Italy, we're going to head over to the nearby San Marino. The Republic of San Marino is a microstate completely enclosed by Italy. The history of this small country is absolutely fascinating. It was founded by a stonemason from Croatia named Saint Marinus. After facing persecution for his Christian sermons, he fled to the mountain of Monte Titano, where he built a church and founded the small country in the year 301 AD. San Marino claims to be the oldest surviving sovereign state and the oldest constitutional republic. The capital of the country is the city of San Marino. After facing persecution for his Christian sermons, he fled to the mountain of Monte Titano, where he built a church and founded the small country in the year 301 AD. San Marino claims to be the oldest surviving sovereign state and the oldest constitutional republic. The capital of the country is the city of San Marino, and it's situated on the slopes.
That was when, didn't Rome collapse after that? So how did they survive inside of the Roman Empire?
Of Monte Titano. It's hard to beat the location of the city. One of the most iconic spots in San Marino is the fortress of Guaita. It was built in the 11th century and served as a prison. San Marino is just such a beautiful yet interesting city and country.
Voice crack, sorry.
And I hope you all can visit. After San Marino, we're going to head over to Greece to visit the medieval monasteries of Meteora.
I would not
Located in
stand.
central Greece, Meteora is home to 6 monasteries built upon nearly inaccessible rock pillars. During the 14th century, monks were facing attacks from Turkish raiders, so they needed a place where they could worship in safety. They decided to start building the monasteries upon the rocks. These places of worship were perfect for the monks because the only way to reach them was by climbing long ladders. The monasteries became a place of refuge, and over 20 monasteries were built during the 14th century. I was lucky enough to go here a few years ago. When I got there, I was just amazed by the architecture of these monasteries. They are perched perfectly on the cliff edge, and you wonder how people could have built these in the medieval time.
I was going to ask that. How do you...
Monks and nuns currently live in the 6 surviving monasteries. The largest one is the monastery of Great Meteoron. If you're ever in Greece, make sure you visit this magical place. While we're still in Greece, we're going to head to the medieval island of Rhodes.
Guys, I only really remember seeing these types of, or I've only really seen these types of rock formations in videos covering China, where, you know, those kind of iconic photos of these spires of rock sort of looking like this, where they have temples on top and whatnot. So I wonder what happened in common of both this and places in China of creating these sort of spires. if you know what I mean.
This magical place. While we're still in Greece, we're going to head to the medieval island of Rhodes. Now, special thanks to my friend
Rhode Island.
All Day Drone for helping me out with footage. He has some of the best content on Rhodes, and I'll link his channel in the description below. Now, Rhodes is an island full of intriguing history. Now, one of my favorite places in Rhodes is its old town. During the 14th century, the Knights of Hospitaller occupied Rhodes and converted a former Byzantine fortress into the palace of the Grand Master. It's one of the few examples of Gothic architecture in all of Greece, which is such an impressive medieval
Gothic
building. Now, after Greece, we're going to head to the United Kingdom to visit Conwy Castle. Located in northern Wales, Conwy Castle is an extraordinary piece of history. It was built by Edward I at the end of the 13th century.
You guys get to drive by a 13th century castle on your way to work for some of you.
Castle,
I hate you.
along
I
with the walls
freaking hate you.
surrounding the city, cost £15,000 to build, which was an enormous amount of money back then. Over the next few centuries, it proved as a strong fortress that withstood many wars and sieges. I just really love the round watchtowers and just the pure medieval look that this place has. While we're still in the UK, we're going to head over to Edinburgh. Now, when I started traveling, this was one of the first cities.
Scotland has a special look to it. In the videos that I've watched, similar to this, it's unique. It's sort of darker, and just filled with an old style
UK, we're
building.
gonna head over to Edinburgh. Now, when I started traveling, this was one of the first cities I visited. It's a medieval old town with intricate neoclassical buildings, cobblestone streets, and beautiful gardens. The crowning feature of the city is the Edinburgh Castle. The castle is one of the oldest fortified.
Guys, I can do that. Okay.
With intricate neoclassical
Should I do it?
buildings,
I need to do it.
cobblestone streets, and
I can do that. I'm doing it. I can do it. It's just it's a cramped area, and I hit my knee. Never mind.
beautiful gardens. The crowning feature of the city
Just forget it.
is the Edinburgh Castle. The castle is one of the oldest fortified places in all of Europe, and it's had one heck of a history. In its 1100 years of existence, it's believed to have faced 26 sieges, making it the most besieged place in Great Britain and one of the most attacked in all the world. Today, Edinburgh Castle is Scotland's most visited attraction, and it's a piece of history you gotta witness if you're ever in Scotland. After, we're going to head over to Germany to visit the town of Rothenburg. Now, when you go to Rothenburg, you'll feel like you're walking to visit the town of Rothenburg. Now, when you go to Rothenburg, you'll feel like you're walking in a
Disney
fantasy
movie.
It's one of the most preserved medieval old towns in all of Europe. During the Middle Ages, Rothenburg thrived as it was located at the crossroads of European trade routes. At the beginning of the 15th century, it rose to becoming the second largest city in all of Germany, but
it looks like Beauty and the Beast. Ever seen that movie? Like this looks like what Walt Disney was replicating.
During the 17th century, Rothenburg faced adversities such as the 30-Year War and the bubonic plague. Without much resources, Rothenburg's growth was halted, which aided in keeping the town preserved in its medieval state. Today, Rothenburg maintains its medieval charm, and it's been the inspiration for sets of Disney movies such as Pinocchio. If you go, you can check out the famous floating corner or witness the beautiful Christmas. If you go, you can check out the famous floating corner or witness the beautiful Christmas markets. I mean, it's just hard to beat the
guys
floating corner or witness.
I always wonder, you see this style of front-facing building with the sort of step look, right? That you see more prevalent as you go into, Denmark, Netherlands, which is a bit south of Denmark, and Belgium, to be honest. Belgium, Netherlands, Denmark, Sweden, Norway, these sort of buildings. And I wonder where it originated and maybe who it originated with, if there's a famous architect
The beautiful
involved.
Christmas markets, just hard to beat the allure of this German village. Another fairy tale location in Germany is the Cohem Castle. The original castle was built back at the beginning of the 12th century, and it made its money by collecting shipping tools on passing ships. Sadly, it was destroyed in 1689 by the French, but in the 19th century, a wealthy businessman from Berlin decided to rebuild the castle. Today, it stands perched on a hill overlooking the beautiful town of Cohem.
No, I love you, France, too, but I love you.
Easy to fall in love with Germany and its medieval castles. Afterwards, we're going to Belgium to visit the medieval city of Bruges. Due to its tidal inlet and canals, Bruges is...
Sorry, guys. I'm not sorry. The only story I have to tell, okay? If you want to fast forward, go ahead, because I'm sure in any European travel video, I mentioned this story. It's the only story I have in Europe, okay? So I have to. But going to Belgium... we went to Heathrow, went through the Channel, went to Paris, France, went to Normandy, back up through Belgium, Netherlands, Germany, Austria, Luxembourg, Switzerland, France, back up to Heathrow. Okay? But going through Belgium and Brussels, it was such the biggest medieval feel I felt in that trip to Europe was in Belgium, was in Brussels. I thought it was so cool. Super tall stone buildings and like a city square that you would think would be there in medieval times. I'll never forget that.
Sometimes referred
Yeah,
to as the Venice of the North. Bruges' tidal inlet helped it become one of the most prosperous cities during the Middle Ages, as it quickly became a strategic location for maritime trade routes. Bruges continued to flourish until the year 1500.
Like that.
When the tidal inlet became silted up. Today, most of Bruges' medieval structures have remained intact. One of my favorite features in the city is the market square. It's towered over by the 277-foot tall medieval bell tower of Belfry.
Look down.
Just such an impressive...
Can you go through and there's a square? This might have been the place we were at.
and unique medieval city. After Belgium, we're going to head over to France to the fairy tale city of Colmar. Located in France's Alsace region, Colmar looks like something straight out of a Disney movie. The city's old town is lined with timber medieval buildings. I love the canal that runs throughout the city. It just adds to the magic of the place. Now, just 20 minutes outside of Colmar is the...
Sorry guys, just if anyone could tell me what sort of material was in between the timber, the wooden beams here. I'm curious, this sort of medieval plaster looking stuff, because clearly whoever came up with it was genius, and clearly that style proved successful, and it was replicated and has become iconic. So I sort of wonder where this style of building was created.
City's old town is lined with timber medieval buildings. I love the canal that runs throughout the city. It just adds to the magic of the place. Now, just 20 minutes outside of Colmar is the quaint village of Rivière. It's believed to be the village that inspired the town from Beauty and the Beast.
The last
Eastern
one
France
looked
is
like
just
it.
such a beautiful region. Afterwards, we're going to head over to Portugal to visit the medieval town of Óbidos. Located about an hour's drive from Lisbon in central Portugal, Óbidos is a romantic medieval town protected by an impressive stone wall. Around the year 713, the Moors established a fortification here, and in 1148, the King of Portugal reclaimed the land after successful storming of the Moorish castle. In the 13th century...
Guys, question. What's the mountain range that separates France and Spain? Ardennes? No. Not the Ardennes. That's forget. Pyrenees? But the landscape, I'm just wondering if the Pyrenees or whatever the mountain range I'm trying to think of between France and Spain is new, because the climate and just landscape looks very similar to southern France
The king
or mid France.
gifted Obidos to his queen, and for the following centuries, the village received special treatment from the queens of Portugal, who remodeled and enriched the village throughout the Middle Ages. Today, Obidos is one of Portugal's most well-preserved medieval cities, and I hope y'all can witness it one day. After, we're going to head over to Spain to visit Avila. I have to say that Avila is one of the most impressive medieval walled cities in all of Europe. The construction of the walls took place between the 11th and 14th centuries. The wall's perimeter is nearly 2.5 kilometers and consists of 88 semicircular towers. I mean, if I lived here during medieval times, I would have felt pretty safe. Now, about an hour's drive from Avila is the Alcázar de Segovia, and this is probably Spain's most dramatic castle. It has a very distinct shape that resembles the bow of a ship. The castle was built in the 12th century as a fortress, but served as a royal palace, prison, and military academy throughout the years. Today, it's a museum and one of Spain's most unique castles. Another beautiful medieval Spanish city is Toledo, located about 70 kilometers south of Madrid. Toledo is a stunning ancient city, perfectly placed on a hill. It's known as the city of three cultures due to its influences from Christians, Muslims, and Jews. The history of Toledo is fascinating and complex. It was taken over by the Moors for several centuries until it was conquered in the 11th century by the Castilians. Today, the city has a population around 80,000. One of the most impressive is the Alcázar de Toledo. It was once used as a Roman palace, and then it was eventually restored in the 16th century. After, we're going to head to southern Spain.
So jealous of you Europeans, and that I say this in a lot of, I mostly, the United Kingdom is by far and away the most I react to its history, but what I say about their depth of history, I can say about any European country, just as much, if not more, of just the amount of history into the past that you have historical records of is just I'm very jealous.
To visit Granada, located at the base of the Sierra Nevada mountains.
Why?
Granada is an elegant Spanish city. The crowning feature of Granada is the Alhambra. It's a fortified Moorish palace that was completed in 1354. The interior of this palace is stunning. There's a reflection pool and a pillared courtyard. I mean, I totally understand why it's one of the most renowned Islamic buildings in Europe. Another cool medieval spot in Spain is the islet of Gaztelugatxe. Now, the first church was built on the island all the way back in the 10th century. If you visit, you'll have to walk up a narrow path of more than 200 stairs. I mean, it's just such an epic location. Hope y'all can check out. After Spain, we're going to visit Luxembourg City. Built among deep gorges cut out by its surrounding rivers, the city is home to one of the most impressive medieval towns. The history of the city is fascinating. In the year 963 AD, Count Siegfried needed a place where he could defend his properties, so he acquired the land which is now the capital and became the first ruler of Luxembourg. Now, what made this landscape so appealing is that it's surrounded by sheer cliffs that serve as a natural fortification against invading armies.
Wow.
Luxembourg's fortifications grew gradually and it became one of Europe's strongest fortresses.
Wait.
Sadly, surrounded by sheer cliffs that serve.
Is this right here? This?
And it became one of Europe's strongest fortresses. Sadly, in
Anyone been to Luxembourg?
1867, the Treaty of London required Luxembourg's fortress to be torn down, so it could
What
be a
year? Jesus Christ.
grew gradually and it became one of Europe's strongest fortresses. Sadly, in 1867, the Treaty of London required Luxembourg's fortress to be torn down, so it could be a place of neutrality. Today, the fortress's ruins still remain. The best place to see them is the Bach Promontory, where you'll find the city's famed cliffs, underground tunnels.
What was happening in 1867? I'm really flabbergasted. Is that I'm confused. What? 3 years before Franco.
And fascinating history. After, we're going to head over to the Orava Castle. Located in Slovakia, Orava Castle is perched perfectly on a skinny rock cliff. This may be one of the most eerie castles in all of Europe. It was used in many scenes of the famous 1922 horror film Nosferatu, so you definitely get some Dracula vibes there. Now, it was built upon a former fortress in the 13th century after the Mongol invasions to defend what was then the Kingdom of Hungary. Like many castles,
Mongol.
So Oravik was
Maybe that's
added
right.
to defend what was then the Kingdom of Hungary. Like many castles, Oravik was added on and destroyed by fire, and then it was ultimately restored. I just think it's so crazy how they were able to integrate the castle onto the stone peaks of the hill, and
Yeah.
it doesn't even look real. If you want spooky vibes, you gotta check this place out. Afterwards, we're going to head over to Poland to visit the charming city of Gdansk. Now, located in northern Poland on the
That is a familiar name, Gdansk. Was there a significant battle there in the last 500 years?
Baltic, we're to Poland to visit the charming city of Gdansk. Now, located in northern Poland on the Baltic coast, earliest mention of Gdansk was in 997, and during the Middle Ages, Gdansk grew as an important seaport and shipbuilding town. It rose to the wealthiest and largest city in Poland until Warsaw's rapid growth in the 18th century. Sadly, a majority of Gdansk was destroyed during World War II, but today, Gdansk is one of Poland's most beautiful cities. I just can't believe how stunning the old town is. It's full of perfectly placed houses next to the river, just an hour's drive from Gdansk.
Also, it has the style of housing.
Old town is. It's full of perfectly placed houses next to the river.
Search
Just an
continues.
hour's drive from Gdansk is the Malbork Castle.
Nice
it's
grass.
the largest castle in the world. It was built in the 13th century by the Teutonic Knights, who were German Catholic
Teutonic?
crusaders. Now, as the number of the knights grew, so did the castle, which encloses an area of 52 acres. It's just crazy to think that people were able to build such buildings back then.
Yes,
Now, like
agreed. I would love to go back in time enough, a few hundred years, to where they didn't have machinery, like, you know, before the Industrial Revolution, pre-1780, pre-1780, or just in the time where they did not have, you know what I mean? I would love to see people building buildings before they had mechanical cranes like we have today.
anchors. It's just crazy to think that people were able to build such buildings back then.
Damn
Now,
right.
like Gdansk, more than half of Malbork Castle was destroyed during World War II, but thankfully it has been rebuilt to its former glory. Afterwards, we're going to head over to the beautiful city of
It's the
Tallinn.
capital of Estonia,
Located
right?
in Estonia on the coast of the Baltic Sea, Tallinn is another stunning medieval capital. So around the year 1050, the Force Fortress was built to kick off Tallinn's old town. As trade grew between Russia and Scandinavia, Tallinn rose up as a dominating port city. In
Part of
1285,
Sweden.
Tallinn became the northernmost member of the Hanseatic League, which was a mercantile and military alliance of German
I need to learn about this. I've said this way too many times. Hanseatic League.
the Hanseatic League, which was a mercantile and military alliance of German-dominated cities in northern Europe. Now, in 1346, the King of Denmark sold Tallinn to the Teutonic Knights, and over the next few centuries, medieval Tallinn thrived. The city grew to a population of 8,000, and Tallinn's medieval city was well fortified with city walls and over 66 defense towers. Today, Tallinn's Old Town is one of Europe's most
You guys see how European cities are like, they go, ooh, but boom, 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 boom. And I'm not saying that some American cities don't have perfectly straight lines. Of course, they don't all have that in all places. But just this giant open area for walking, there's just so much more personality to European cities. Seems like to me.
over 66 defense towers. Today, Tallinn's Old Town is one of Europe's most well-preserved medieval cities. I just love all the buildings and
That
architecture
grass.
with its orange and cone domed roofs. While we're still in the Baltics, we're going to visit Latvia's capital of Riga. Now, I have to say that I was very surprised by Riga's beauty. It's full of stunning medieval architecture. Riga
I
was
see.
founded back in 1201, and today it's the largest city in all the Baltic countries. One of the most famous buildings is the House of the Blackheads. It's located in Riga's Old Town and was built in the 14th century. St. Peter's Church is another dramatic building. that
Please,
towers
guys, if
over-
anyone knows the origin of this kind of architecture, the stepping up of the front side of the building, I would really appreciate your insight.
Built in the 14th century, St. Peter's Church is another dramatic building that towers over Riga's skylines. Riga is just such a special and underrated city, and I hope all can visit. Afterwards, we're going to head back to Croatia to visit the medieval port city of Rovinj. Now, located on the Istrian Peninsula on Croatia's western coast, Rovinj is one of the most beautiful medieval fishing towns I've ever seen. From 1283 to 1797,
Adriatic Sea.
Rovinj was governed by the Republic of Venice. From 1918 to 1947, it belonged to the Kingdom of Italy. Today it is part of Croatia, and it's one of the country's most beautiful cities. When you walk the streets, you'll feel like you're in Italy due to its Italian influence. One of the most beautiful features of the city is the Church of St. Euphemia. It's perfectly perched on the hill in the historic part of the city. It was completed in 1680 and stands over 60 meters tall. Ravine is just such a special spot, and I hope y'all can check it out one day. After Croatia, we're going to head over to Romania to see the medieval castles of Transylvania. Now, Transylvania is a very intriguing yet spooky region. It is the birthplace of the infamous ruler Vlad the Impaler. Transylvania is also where Bram Stoker's novel Count Dracula takes place. One of the most famous locations in Transylvania is the Bran Castle. Located near the city of Brasov, the castle was built around the 14th century and served as a fortification against the Ottoman Empire. Similar to Orava, Bran has been named Dracula's castle thanks to its dramatic architecture. Another impressive medieval place in Transylvania is Corvin Castle. It's one of the largest castles in Europe, and its construction began in 1446. Like Bran, it has a creepy vibe to it. Needless to say, Transylvania is a fascinating region full of...
Am I right to assume that any wooden structures on any old castles in present day are reconstructions because they don't survive well, right?
It has a creepy vibe to it. Needless to say, Transylvania is a fascinating region full of some of the world's most uncanny castles. After, let's head over to the medieval fortress of Carcassonne. Now, when I imagine medieval Europe, I don't think there's a better place that exemplifies it better than this fortified city. Located in southern France, Carcassonne began as a Roman fortified hilltop and was given to the Visigoths in the 5th century, who continued to fortify and build the city. Throughout the centuries, Carcassonne proved to be an impregnable fortress as army after army failed to overtake the protected city. Today, the city consists of 53 towers that are protected by its 2 outer walls. It remains as one of Europe's greatest medieval gems. For our last destination, we're going to visit the...
just look at it.
Island of Mont Saint-Michel. Now, located 1 kilometer off the coast of France, Mont Saint-Michel is one of the most magical destinations in all of Europe. The island is full of small shops and homes, with a monastery perched on the top of the island's highest point. The construction of the monastery began in the 10th century and was finished in 1523. Due to its strategic position and dangerous changing tides, the island remained protected throughout history. Today, dangerous changing tides, the island...
Anyone know what these do, guys? I don't know why my brain goes to sewage, but I don't think it is.
Remain protected throughout history. Today, Mont Saint-Michel is one of France's most popular tourist destinations. If you're ever in northern France or Paris, you really need to visit this magical island. Well, that is it from my
I've been to northern France twice, and I've never even thought of it.
Top 25. I just love making videos about the Middle Ages. I mean, it's just so fascinating to research and learn about the history of these places. I mean, there's just so many medieval locations throughout Europe, so be expecting more videos soon. I started a relaxation channel where I post hour-long films of beautiful places around the world to bring some peace and nature in your life. You can find me on TikTok and Instagram at shirley.films. And it's Ryan, and we will see you later.
I cannot say enough about this channel. I just think that it is so well... it's one of the channels where one of the only channels where I discovered it, and the more I watched it, I thought he's actually taking these images, and even in the one he's not, it doesn't matter. It won't. He could fake 90%, not fake. Sorry, take 90% of the. He doesn't, obviously, from other places. It's so, the images are insane, and this channel is easily one of my favorite, if not top 2, with Rick Steves Europe. In just the videos I like to watch in terms of travel and different parts of Europe. Hope you guys are doing well. I'd appreciate any of your comments. Yeah, and I'll see you guys next video. Bye, guys.